I keep hearing advice about building a brand at work, but I'm not sure I understand the point. I'm just a person doing my job. Shouldn't my work speak for itself? As an employee, is it necessary to have a personal brand?
Necessary for you to develop it? No. A good idea to know what it is and what you want it to be? Yes. So branding is this kind of thing that I think like due to the internet and I don't know, like social media and all this, it's got this kind of like icky idea to it. Just pull it all the way back. People form a perception about other people all the time. And we do that because human beings get a ton of information at any given moment. So, as an example, if you look up at the sky and you look at clouds, kind of naturally for most of us, we start forming patterns out of those clouds. Like, what do they look like? It's the same with like most things in life. We are always trying to put things into buckets just for simplification of how we process data and interact with things in the world. And branding actually falls into that. People very often are looking at the people around them, the people they work with, and not just the people they work with very closely, but the people they work with once in a while or one time. And they're kind of putting them into buckets, just so again, just for future reference of how to work with people and how to work in situations. Sometimes those buckets are dead on, and sometimes they're like totally off. So, from a branding perspective, what I really encourage people to know is that most people, just in general, have an established brand, and that brand could be pretty accurate or it could be wildly inaccurate. And it could also be based on like really like bad, like discriminatory things or like prejudices or any of those things. So I really encourage people to think, what do I believe my brand is today? What's my value proposition? Like, where do I come from as a person in the work world? And not only that, but also what do you want it to be in the future? So what do you aspire to be? And here's a simple way of doing that. If you think about your brand, think of it as three sentences. And those three sentences should be 22 words or less. The reason it's 22 words or less is business writing and business communication is intended to be very concise. So it's unlike entertainment writing or academic writing. Academic writing, the sentences are typically longer, more complex sentence structure. Same with entertainment writing. Think of sentences in the work world that you're saying or writing should be really short, really clear, and really direct. So think of your brand, three sentences. Your brand should be identified by the behaviors that you demonstrate. So when people think about branding, they usually use words that I call marquee words like integrity or transparency or things like that. It's not that those things are bad, but what do they actually mean? I really want you to think if you're going to have a behavior, what are the data points? And the data points should be so if I'm going to say I'm this, how would my audience know that? How would they recognize that? How would they be able to track that that's actually how I behave and that I behave that way enough that it should be a part of my brand? So the easiest way to do that is write out your brand, three sentences. This is who I believe I am as a professional today. There's going to be a bunch of behaviors in there. Then I want you to think, what are the data points to that? Like, how would someone see that in practice so they would know this is true about me? And the easiest way to do that is figure out what are the skills that are associated with those behaviors. If you're wondering what the difference is between a behavior and a behavior is something that people can see that you're expressing. Like people can be like, that's how this person behaves. Skills are the things that allow you to execute on that behavior. So to demonstrate that behavior. So you need a bunch of skills to demonstrate any behavior, especially if it's a behavior that you're trying to do consistently. Because most of us know that almost anyone can demonstrate a behavior for a short period of time if they feel they need to. But for it to be consistent, it actually has to have skills that they've really adopted, they've learned, they've honed. So write out three sentences that you believe show who you are as a professional. What are the behaviors in there? And then write down what the skills are. And just make sure that it passes the pressure test. Do people have enough data to say, this is who I am as a professional? That's step one. And trust me, this is like a super, super hard exercise. Step number two, I want you to write your aspirational brand. And your aspirational brand is like, what do I aspire to be within 3 to 5 years? 3 to 5 years is like a pretty practical timeline if you're aspiring to become something, and write out a different brand. And that brand should be what you actually want to be perceived in the future, recognizing that you're not that today. Write that out. What are the behaviors? What are the associated skills? Then you figure out that gap, and then you're going to figure out, well, what are the skills I have to acquire? How do I develop them? And who can help? It totally matters because most people who are going to be watching this care about progressing not just in their careers, but in their lives. And who you are as a person, that's your brand. And it does matter because no matter what, your brand, whether you intentionally or unintentionally develop it, it's there. I encourage people to be like really honest, like, what's my brand today and what do I want it to be in the future, and start working on it.